So, guys, President Biden visited Angola, and this is laughable because this is his first trip to Africa, and in his first meeting with these leaders on the continent on the African continent side, this man fell asleep while the presidents are speaking in a meeting. Can you imagine that? So don't take my word for it. Here is it. Take a look at it and let me know it. And take a look at it. Boom.
Aiming at aligning this project with national priorities and other bilateral and regional commitments. In closing, allow me to reiterate Tanzania's commitment to regional integration and shared prosperity. We note the progress made on the development of the Lobito Corridor and commend the visionary leadership that has brought this initiative to life. And it is through such partnerships and innovations that Africa's Agenda 2063 will be realized. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd like to turn it over.
All right, so
there you have it. He actually fell asleep, and he did. So couldn't someone there tap him or tell him to wake up, or one of his aides must say, "Yo, we're in a meeting." But no, because he has no interest in helping Africa. None, zero interest. And listen to this. Listen to this speech. It was a long speech, like 30 minutes, but I wanted to listen to this minute of speech and what he said, because this is very important. And dissect it. Take a listen. Boom.
All in on Africa means making sure African voices are heard at the tables that matter most. Under my leadership of the United States, we brought in the African Union as a permanent member of the G20 economies. And we insisted on more African representation among the leaders of the International Monetary Fund and other world financial institutions. We've also pushed to ensure that developing nations do not have to choose between paying down unsustainable debt and being able to invest in their own people. And we're using our own voice to increase Africa's presence in the UN Security Council at the United Nations. That should happen. You can clap for that, folks. You should be in there. The United States continues to be the world's largest provider of humanitarian aid and development assistance. And that's going to increase. You know, that's the right thing for the wealthiest nation in the world to do. And today, I'm announcing over $1 billion in new humanitarian support for Africans displaced from homes by historic droughts and food insecurity. We know African leaders and citizens are seeking more than just aid. You seek investment. So the United States is expanding our relationship all across Africa, from assistance to aid, to investment to trade, moving from patrons to partners.
So, you see there, he's talking about giving $1 billion in aid money to African countries. This is just to buy their vote, basically, because the African some African countries got seat in the UN. They have 2 seats actually, but in this UN summit they have no voting power. So it's like basically you're on the outside as a spectator. So they invite you in the room to sit down and stay quiet and don't say a word. So that's basically the same thing. And he's talking about he did welcome them, and he's giving $1 billion in aid money. This is all a show. This is all for the media and for the world, because what he's promising is 100 billion. Number one, that money will never be approved for the African continent. Why? Because the American Congress won't approve it, and Donald Trump definitely won't agree to this. So this so-called $1 billion aid money he's promising, that's not going to happen. Because he have less than 6 weeks in presidency. So why you gonna how is this money going to get passed through? And why do you need to give aid money so late in your presidency, when you're basically through the door to African nations? And because aid money is used as a clutch to hold these countries and to keep them in their place. Because if you accept, let's say, 100 million in aid money from the states, and when they come and say, okay, we want to do this, you say no, they say, okay, give them back our aid money. After the money is already spent, then they're going to tell you, return their money. You can't return it, so now you have to make compromises to these people. You cannot accept aid money from any one of these so-called power countries like um, the Americans, the Germans, the French, the Dutch, the Italians. You cannot take loan from these people because aid money because it always comes with strings attached. And this whole thing in Africa was because of the UN vote. He want the backing of the African countries whenever they have any voting, which they don't already have no voting, but if they backing of the continent, they have a little more pep in their step. So we need to stick with Russia and China and sign deals and trade with these countries than these former colonial powers. Russia has never colonized Africa. China have never colonized Africa. But they are willing to work with African leaders. All these African leaders have to do now is take this when they have these deals with China, make sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. That's it. Do like what the Three Alliance, the AES is doing, the Sahel nation, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Stop accepting aid money. Stop taking money from the IMF and the World Bank. Niger is now debt free. Niger and Mali. Mali is now debt free, literally. Burkina Faso will be debt free in the next 2 to 3 months because they almost pay off all the external debts. So they will have basically be free to do what they want. And Niger is in its way because they just seize the uranium um, mine from the French and telling them is our way or the highway. So these countries, if these some countries can do this, what is it these other more advanced nations can, like Nigeria, South Africa, Botswana, who is one of the biggest diamond mines in Africa, and all these other countries? Why are they still beholden to the colonial powers and beholden to the World Bank and IMF? Ghana, Ivory Coast, Benin. Why are Senegal, Cameroon, why are these countries still beholden to the colonial power? Because why? They are corrupted. You cannot blame some of our issues we have on the African continent. We cannot blame the colonial powers or white people. You cannot blame us because of corruption, greed, and not putting the money to good use and becoming self. They're enriching themselves. This is what our problem is: enriching ourselves on the continent because we want to when we get to the power, we want to move from the African continent and go to somewhere in Europe to live while we live for our brothers and sisters in chaos. Because the more the country is destabilized, the more theft can happen, the more money they can siphon off. And this is the reason why these Sahel countries are so important. They lay the blueprint to show other countries that this it can be done, but you guys choose not to because of corruption and puppetry by beholden to the powers to be, the colonial powers who still have their hooks in certain African countries. Anyway, so what do you think about this? The soon to be ex president visiting Africa promising loan money which will not be given and talking about the UN. They should have a better voice in the UN Security Council when they themselves refuse to give African countries any voting power, any veto power. So what you cause a problem and then you're acting as if you wanna fix the problem. You wanna fix the problem. These countries will not fix a problem that benefits them. Africa destabilized benefits every European country and colonial and Western countries because that's how they enrich themselves or minerals. That's not going to end, and they will not end that. So they are only there to sink their hooks or their claws deeper into these countries, especially the DRC, Congo, where every single country have an embassy there. You can imagine that every single Western former colonial powers have their hooks into the DRC. Anyway, let me know what you think about this blatant publicity stunt by President Biden to try to pull the wool over our eyes, and we should not let this happen. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. As always, I don't know. Tell a friend, like, comment, share, subscribe. Boom.